Today on the channel, I'm going to rank all the Van Halen albums. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to rank the Van Halen albums. Lately, I've been going down this rabbit hole on YouTube, watching videos where people rank albums of their favorite bands. And I think it's pretty interesting, so I'm going to give it my shot today and rank the Van Halen albums. Now, these are going to be ranked from my least favorite to my most favorite, okay? This is a very tough list for me to do because I like all Van Halen records, but there has to be a list, and I'm going to do my best to give you my thoughts and opinions. Mine are going to be different than yours. I would love to hear what your list is in the comments. I'd love to read it and see why, okay? And if you disagree with something I say, let me know. I love to have constructive conversations around this sort of thing. I'm a total nerd when it comes to talking about music. So anyway, here we go. Without further ado, I'm going to start the list off with a live album. Now, this list is going to include live albums. If Van Halen officially released it as a DVD or a CD or a live album, I'm going to list it as a record, okay? So my least favorite is Live from the Tokyo Dome with David Lee Roth. This was a double album, and in my opinion, it's my least favorite and worst of the Van Halen collection. And you're probably thinking, how's it worse than Van Halen 3, right? Because everybody bags on Van Halen 3 so bad, but I put the Live at Tokyo Dome at the bottom of the list because the vocal performance on it, in my opinion, is pretty rough, man. David Lee Roth took a lot of liberties in the way that he sings these songs, rhythmically and melodically. More power to him. He wrote these lyrics. He's in the band. He can do whatever he wants to, but I'm a fan, and I have my opinion, and I feel that you pay money to go see a band. You want to hear those songs resemble what they're supposed to sound like, and there's a lot of these songs where it sounds like Dave's trying too hard to prove he can sing. He was clearly having fun, and the band performance was top notch. But man, the vocals kill it for me, right? Too many liberties. All right, my next least favorite album on the list. The next one under this is the obvious Van Halen 3 record. Okay, so Van Halen 3, it's easy to rip on this album, and we all have heard it, we all know it, and we know the reasons why we don't like it, but I'm gonna talk about some of the obvious things for me. First of all, I think the album, it's meandering. I feel like the album just kind of goes on way too long. Some of these songs are 6-7 minutes long, and I feel like the production and editing on this album was very lackluster. I'm not sure if that's because Eddie was in charge, or maybe Eddie just had yes men in the studio that wouldn't give him the feedback or the constructive guidance that he needed. But the album seems to lack a lot of direction on some songs, and on really almost every song. The production is poor, the mastering is not good in my opinion, and it doesn't sound like Gary really found his niche within the Van Halen team. It just it came out sounding kind of uncomfortable. If you listen to the unreleased song That's Why I Love You, which is on YouTube, that song should have been on Van Halen 3. That might have saved this album. It would have given it a little bit of boost, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, production kind of meanders, needed to be edited better. The mastering is poor. Anyways, on to the next. The next album on the list for me, probably get some hate for this, but A Different Kind of Truth. A Different Kind of Truth is third from the worst, in my opinion. The vocals on this album are they're kind of harsh. There's certain songs where the vocals are mixed really loud. Songs like Stay Frosty that are great tunes that I want to love. I can't really enjoy them. The vocals are harsh to me, and some of the performances on the vocals on a few of these tunes just I can't get into it. And songs like As Is or Honey Baby Sweetie Doll or whatever it's called, It sounds like experimental David Lee Roth stuff, and I'm just not into that. I'm just not into it. I respect the album a lot. I think the material, most of it was, from the Van Halen early years. A lot of it was some great tunes. She's the Woman, Beats Workin', Big River, Out of Space, killer songs. Some of those songs are produced really well, and other songs are hit and miss. The album wasn't produced at 5150, to my knowledge. It was all done at Henson Studios, and I just don't think he had the magic. Anyway, next on the list is Right Here, Right Now. Right Here, Right Now was a fantastic tour. That was my favorite tour that I ever saw Van Halen on. Saw Van Halen probably 15 times in my life, and the Right Here, Right Now tour is killer. But the double album was kind of a letdown. I feel that the band were trying to recreate the magic that was in Live Without a Net, but Live Without a Net was lightning in a bottle that was captured, and we grew to love Eddie's solo and the performances, the band energy, and it really wasn't there on Right Here, Right Now. Most of that album was fixed or repaired in the studio. I've read many interviews about it, and for instance, like Eddie went back and redid some of his guitars because the guitar was out of tune, and then when he did that, Sammy's vocals were out of tune, so Sammy had to go back and re-record it, and I really don't like the chorus and the delay effect that is on Sammy's voice. It sounds like everything has a strange wash to it. But I will say, there's some killer stuff on there. It is really a great concert, and it's fun to watch. Some of the video editing is kind of weird. In one song, they filmed it over a couple nights. In one song, they'll be wearing one uniform or one outfit, and then during a guitar solo, they'll be completely playing a different guitar or different outfit. So I think the continuity there is kind of bad. But if we're talking about just sonically, some of it's really cool. I like it how they do "You Really Got Me" and in the middle of Cabo Wabo, I think, and "Won't Get Fooled Again" by The Who is awesome. So yeah, it's got some hot spots, but it's going to be one of my lower ranked albums. Before Right Here, Right Now, I'm going to rank Live Without a Net. Live Without a Net is a great record, but it's got some, it's not produced that great. I mean, it was done in the 80s, and it was a little rushed. That's one reason I like it, but that's another reason why it's ranked lower on my list, is just because of production value. I feel like if I've got to be picky, and I hate being picky about Van Halen, but it sounded to me like they rushed Summer Nights and Get Up. They were really, really fast. I know there were more songs that they played live on tour that were omitted from the DVD or the VHS for whatever reason. And I've seen some of those clips, and I'm like, man, why didn't they put that on there? I don't know why Good Enough wasn't on the album, right? It's kind of weird to see Eddie play keyboards and Sammy play guitar, because they didn't really have the whole tracks and MIDI stuff perfected for live in the late 80s, which is kind of hard to fathom nowadays. So yeah, Live Without a Net would be ranked kind of on the lower end. All right, so after Live Without a Net, we're going to get into the studio albums with David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar, and this is going to get me in some trouble because again, these are just opinions, but my next lowest on the list is Diver Down. Diver Down is a great record, okay? I love Diver Down. I listen to it a lot. I think it's got a lot of swagger and feel to it, but to me, Diver Down, production-wise, is kind of weak. I read that they recorded Diver Down, I think, over a 2-week time frame because they were rushed. They were on tour. They were touring back to back, and they had to put together a bunch of cover tunes, which I think that came across in Eddie's playing. I don't think Eddie put as much passion into his playing as he could have, because I don't know if he was emotionally invested in some of these tunes. Undoubtedly the band plays great on this record, but a lot of cover songs, man, a lot of cover tunes, and to me it just sounds like a rushed record. And Eddie's tone on Diver Down to me is it's not the same tone. I don't know if it was the mics, if it was the studio, or if it was his amp head at the time, it was acting kind of weird. It's just not the best tone that he's had on records, although I love it. All right, so before Diver Down, the next record or album on the list for me is Balance. Balance is a great record. Bruce Fairbairn produced it. Awesome production on the vocals. Guitars are fat. Huge production. But one reason this song ranks lower on the list is some points I take away for these albums are if there's a number of songs that I would skip or do skip on records, and on balance I skip Big Fat Money. I think lyrically Big Fat Money is just kind of really corny. I think it sounded cool live, but on the album I don't think it really sounded that great. It's kind of like on Master of Puppets, The Thing That Should Not Be. I don't like that song on Master of Puppets, but live it's like one of the best songs ever to hear them play live, hear Metallica play, right? So Big Fat Money, while it's not my favorite song that I heard Van Halen play live, it was cool live. And if you watch them play it live on DVD or on YouTube, it's pretty cool, but not on the album. Beluchatherium, as I've gotten older, instrumental tunes, even though I write instrumental tunes, I don't really like to listen to them that much, and I kind of lose interest. So that's kind of a pass for me. Strung Out is just noise. I don't really like Strung Out. And Not Enough is a fantastic song. Not Enough on balance is just mastered too quietly. That song goes on for about 40, 50 seconds or so before you can really hear it, and you got to turn it way up. But it's a masterpiece. I love Not Enough. I feel like, why did they master that song that way? It's just weird, and it creates a strange vibe for Strung Out to come before Not Enough. All right, so then my next album on the list, before Balance, I've got For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is it's a tremendous record, okay? But back to my skip songs, In and Out I skip, Man on a Mission I skip, and Spanked. Spanked is really kind of cheesy, the lyrics. I never really liked it when it came out, but the whole 900 number thing is kind of weird. The story behind Spanked is funny because in an interview, Eddie said that Andy Johns was complaining about his studio monitors in 5150. This is when they were rebuilding the studio, and Andy Johns came in and he told Eddie, man, these monitors are spanked. And they laughed. They thought that was so funny, his term spanked. So they wrote a song called Spanked, and clearly back in the early 90s, 900 numbers were a thing, so I guess, Sammy went there. All right, so before For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge on my list, this kind of hurts me, but I'm going to put OU812. OU812, I listen to OU812 a lot. I love the album, but there are some tracks I skip. Source of Infection is a skip track for me simply because to me it was like Sammy and the band trying to replicate Hot for Teacher, and it's no Hot for Teacher. And Source of Infection is just kind of a gross title. I mean, love is a source of infection. I mean, that's pretty nasty. I mean, it's kind of gross to think about it, and I just not really a big fan of that song. A lot of people don't like Feel So Good. I think Feel So Good is a good song. I like it. It reminds me of the beach and summertime, but I can understand why some people would not like Feel So Good, and I think that's kind of influenced me to rate OU812 a little bit on the lower side. Mine All Mine is very experimental for Van Halen. I wanted to call out reasons why I like OU812 so much. Is Cabo Wabo is a great song. Black and Blue, Finish What You Started. I even like Apolitical Blues. I like Sucker and a Three-Piece. And Mine All Mine, the way the album starts off is fantastic. So it's strong from front to back. A lot of people don't like OU812 because it is experimental and there's a lot of keyboards and there's a lot of different styles of music, but it's okay. If it's not your thing, then it's not your thing. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just not your thing. And I appreciate where Eddie was going on OU812. I think it was adventurous and a lot of cool tones and songwriting. Okay, so the next album under OU812 is going to be a little polarizing for many of you, but under OU812, we're down to the last six selections. So at number 6, I got Van Halen II. So Van Halen II is number 6. A lot of people are going to be like, Van Halen II is my favorite Van Halen record, but Van Halen II is on my list because You're No Good, I don't think, is a great cover song, and it starts the album off. Okay, I think that's a weird opener, so I'm going to score it down for that. And Out of Love Again is not a awesome song. It's a great song. It's not awesome, man. So it's got some chinks in the armor, but Van Halen 2 fires on a lot of cylinders. I mean, we got DOA, Somebody Get Me a Doctor. I mean, there's just killer tunes, man. Women in Love. I mean, how can you argue that those aren't great songs? So Van Halen 2 is going to be number 6 on my list. So below Van Halen 2, coming at number 5, I'm going to do Women and Children First. Women and Children First is on my list at number 5 because skip tracks, Loss of Control, and Tora Tora are kind of skip tracks for me. I do like Loss of Control. I love the little, Mayday, Mayday, breaker, Dave doing all the CB stuff. It's cool. The song is kind of raucous, which I kind of like some days, and other days I'm like, I just don't have it in me to invest myself into this tune. But I respect what they did. I think the production on Women and Children First is okay. It's not the best. The bangers on this album, I think, could have sounded a whole lot better with a little bit better production. I'm not sure if it's the drum sound on Women and Children First that gets me, or the reverb, the plate that's on it. But anyway, production on Van Halen 2 to me is also kind of a pain point. Okay, so next on my list, I said Van Halen 2, we're on Women and Children First. So after Women and Children First, my next lowest rated album, we're down to like the number 4 album, okay, is 1984. Boy, was it hard for me to rank these last 4 albums. But 1984 comes in at number 4. Skip track on that for me is I'll Wait. I think it's a cool song. The guitar solo is killer, but I don't know. I kind of skip it. But Van Halen 1984 being in the top 4 Van Halen records, in my opinion, I challenge anybody to listen to a really heavy rock album from the early 80s that has the punch and the tone and the sound that was generated from just drums, bass, and guitar. Eddie and Al recorded those guitar and drum parts live together in the studio, and it's just them ripping. And then, Mike probably overdubbed his bass later. Or maybe it might have been in the room, but I think it was just Eddie and Al playing those songs live in the studio. And it's wicked, and the production on 84 is fantastic. You can really tell Eddie was inspired to be in his new studio, and it showed, and they created a masterpiece. And 84 spawned some of the most iconic rock and roll videos for Van Halen, and rock and roll videos of all time, really, for that era. And songs, Jump, Panama, Hot for Teacher. Heck, they're part of our it's the salt of hard rock and 80s rock, man. It's the fiber in which, all that stuff was developed from. So anyway, after 1984, we're going to move up to the 3rd ranked album, and I'm going to put 5150 as number 3. 5150 to me is pretty much front to back perfect album. The only skipper on this for me is Get Up. Get Up to me it's out of 10 stars, I give it like a 6.8. Get Up is great as far as like energy wise, but even live, when I saw him play it live, it just never really hit me super hard, right? So Get Up is a skip track for me. Inside, a lot of people skip Inside because it's kind of weird. I like to listen to Inside at the end, especially with headphones. I like to check out what they're saying and who's saying it, and figure out what they're talking about. So 5150, number 3 for me. The number 2 album on the list is going to be Fair Warning. Fair Warning is probably my favorite Van Halen record when it comes to Eddie's guitar tone and Eddie's riffs. The riffs and the tone on Fair Warning are unbeatable. I mean, you've got Unchained, you've got Mean Street, Hear About It Later. I mean, it goes on and on and on. The Fair Warning is Eddie's probably his most creative album when it comes to guitar riffs and basically his writing style and playing. He's all over the place, very eclectic. He was super inspired. But, I would have to say that Fair Warning, it lacks a little bit to be number 1, and what it lacks is pop sensibility. Pop sensibility is what created the foundation for the #1 Van Halen record on the list, which is Van Halen 1. Pop sensibilities from front to back, Van Halen 1 is accessible to everybody. Everybody can gravitate to Van Halen 1. It's got hooks, it's got melody, it's got killer guitar, it's produced perfect. Ted Templeman captured the band absolutely perfectly on this album. The reverb, the tone of the amp, I don't know if it was the studio, if it was the microphones, if it was just the energy of the band, the youth, all the above. But from front to back, there's not a bad song off of Van Halen 1. There's not one song that I would skip off Van Halen 1. The album is laid out perfectly. If you're looking at it from side 1 to 2, side A and B, when back in the day when we didn't have iPhones and Spotify and all that stuff, the album tracks, the first song on side 1 to the last song on side 1, the first song on side 2, and the way the album closes, it tells a story, and it's the Van Halen story, and it really captured the boys at their best writing. They were produced with absolute care, and the final product was what launched, in my opinion, the greatest rock and roll band of all time and that will ever be. So anyway, there's my list, my Van Halen album ranking. I've never done anything like this. I hope you like the content. Please comment below and let me know what your rankings are. I'd love to see them and hear your comments. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And as always, have a great day. Peace out.